Hi, my name's Dave. I have a story to tell you about me. I have some lung issues. I was born with them. 59 years old. Um, when I was born, I had a spot on my lung. And at that time, they really didn't know what it was. So they removed it. They took out a fifth of my lung. So growing up, I really never had full lung capacity. But my normal was my normal. It was different than everybody else. Um, I have a big scar that goes from here all the way around the back of me. And I also have what's called pectus excavatum. It's a hole in my chest. And between those two things, I looked a little different when I took my shirt off when I was a kid. So people would say, "Can you breathe okay?" And I'd be like, "I have no idea. Do you breathe okay?" So basically, my parents always just told me it was cosmetic, not a big deal. And I grew up playing ice hockey and doing sports and doing everything that all the other normal kids do. You know, it never really affected me. I was never self-conscious, so I didn't really care about it. So I just did what everybody else was doing. And it wasn't until years later that, fast forward, till 2020, that I got COVID. And when I got COVID, I didn't realize that I was one of those people that was at risk, because I never really thought about my lungs as being an issue. But lo and behold, they were an issue. I got COVID. I got COVID bad. I was in the hospital for 6 days the first time. And then I got COVID again the second time, and I was in the hospital like 5 days. When I came out, I was on oxygen. Then I got the flu after that. And then I started thinking, what's going on? And my pulmonologist and we sat down and we started talking about my life in general. And I realized that when I was a kid, there was more issues than I really realized. When I thought about, I lived on a third floor apartment, and as a child, 10, 12, 15 years old, running up and down stairs, I used to get tired and rest at the second landing and then finish going up the stairs. And like as a kid, that's probably not normal. I played ice hockey, as I mentioned, but I played goalie. And why? Because I didn't like skating up and down the ice, because I'd get tired. Again, another something else that I never occurred to me. My siblings and we belonged to the YMCA. My siblings used to like to swim. I didn't. Why? Because I'd get winded. I learned how to swim, but I didn't like to swim. So all those factors involved saying, they raised red flags to me at that point, but I didn't really think about it until I got older. So, my pulmonologist said, you need to be on oxygen. And I said, for how long? They said, for a long time. You're going to have to go through some testing. And so we went through some testing, and my lung capacity was low. I had hypoxia. I had emphysema. I had COPD, all kinds of stuff. And my primary doctor asked me, "Do you know what your diagnosis is?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he says, "Because you have everything. That's why you have no idea." I said, "Everything?" He says, "Yeah, you got just about every lung disease possible." And July of last year, July of this past year, my pulmonologist said, "You're going to need a double lung transplant," because this past July I was in the hospital. When I got out of the hospital, they said, "Your lungs have gone through the ringer, and I don't believe we can save them. You're going to have to get a double lung transplant." And I thought about that, and I said, wow. I looked into the surgery, and there was a lot of factors involved that would hinder the survival of the surgery. And one was being diabetic. I'm a diabetic, and that could complicate the surgery. Another thing was esophagus issues, and I have jackhammer esophagus. Jackhammer esophagus would complicate the issues. I have an autoimmune disease, which would complicate the surgery as well. And I can't take prednisone. I have bad reactions to prednisone. Every side effect possible hits me, and I just can't take it. With those factors involved, I panicked. Didn't know what to do. And my sister is a botanist, and she owns a plant store. She mentioned mullein. And she said, I know Mullen is known to help lung health. She said, I'm going to give you that information and you run with it. I did some research and I found Better Brand. I started taking Better Brand in July. By September, I was off oxygen. My pulmonologist was astounded, had no idea, didn't know what to say. I know what to say. Better Brand saved my life. That's all I can tell you. Better Brand saved my life.